Tonight on Oregon Art Beat, see how Katy McFadden tackles the challenge of building clay up to be as big as life. Two artists paint one of the largest fine art murals in the U.S. to celebrate the wildlife of Portland's Oaks Bottom Refuge. And Chin Tan is a violinist with the Oregon Symphony, but in her spare time she plays the new and very tiny treble violin. Oregon Art Beat is next.
Funding for Oregon Art Beat provided by the James F. and Marion L. Miller Foundation, the Kinsman Foundation, and viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Casey Cowan.
And I'm Jeff Douglas. Welcome to Oregon Art Beat.
Well, Jeff, we're finally getting into some spring-like weather now that spring is really here, and that means the garden party that ceramic artist Katy McFadden holds each year isn't far away. That was just one element of her story that we shot last year. Now, Katy works in ceramics, but on a scale most artists would not want to attempt. She's renowned for her ability to make life-sized figures out of clay. Take a look. What's taking place at Katy McFadden's studio only happens a few times a year. Some of her ceramic pieces are so big and so time-consuming to make, she only fires up her kiln 5 or 6 times annually. But first, let's go back and take a look at how she builds her big-as-life statues. Let's start with the clay. Extra groggy.
It's called Hair of the Dog, made by George Wright. And it's designed, the nylon fibers add to its strength when it's in the leather hard and greenware stage. It burns out during the firing. It doesn't have anything to do with the completed piece, but in the forming of the piece, it gives it a strength to hold together.
Then the technique, a variation on the oldest known way of making a clay pot.
The way that I work is basically a coil technique, a very simple, elemental way of working with clay. It just so happens that my coils are flattened out on a slab roller. I roll out 25 pounds of clay at one time, and I have them all as big flat slabs and cut them into sections, big coils, that I'll stack one on top of the other. Just lightly tack it. Step back and take a look. If I continue in this direction, it's going to be pretty much a vertical piece. At this point, it becomes a little time-consuming. It's just the devil is in the details at this point, that I'll continue to work the surface to unify it or to create a texture that unifies the whole piece visually. Now I want to join the whole thing together vertically. So I come along and I come to the inside of the form and attach a coil of clay on the inside. It's just not rocket science.
No, but in the hands of a lesser skilled artist, a piece that big might not even survive the drying stage before it goes to the kiln. Creating the figure to its final glazing can take Katy anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks each, and during that time, she becomes passionately involved with each one.
It's not a momentary thing that I'm trying to work with. I may start out with an intention, but over that 3-week period of time, my own attitude towards the piece changes, and the clay changes. So it's a dialogue. You have to be attentive to that material, to its personality.
Because they are so large, and Katy is so small, she can't load the kiln by herself. Friends assist with some mechanical help.
Then we have to come dead center. One more our cycle nearing completion.
Katy was not even an art student in college until
I needed art credits to get out of college, undergraduate. I was a philosophy major, and I used to stand outside the ceramic studio looking in, watching people make things with envy. I couldn't do that until I had to take art classes to get out. Signed up for a ceramics class, and they couldn't get rid of me for 2 years. I was there day and night, day and night.
eventually getting a degree in ceramics, Katy went on to build her own kiln, even toyed with casting metal, and worked at a foundry.
I always wanted to make things that had a scale to it. And metal, you can cast into larger ones. I knew that the expense of doing that was prohibitive. So I returned to the material that I knew the best, took workshops with people who were doing ceramic sculpture, invented a few techniques for working with the material so that I could work at a larger size. Ceramics, fired to a high temperature, is the most durable material that we have. Unless, it's brittle, of course. If you hit something with a branch or a hammer, it would break. But in terms of weather, it's impervious. The glazes are stable. The clay body is mature. If they're designed so that water will drain away from them, they'll be around for thousands of years.
First, however, they need to survive the firing process.
Well, this is the exciting moment for all ceramic artists. There's about 4 months' work in this kiln. Nice, nice. Okay, so this is a refire. See how the color changed. Nice. Look at all my friends. They're all here. Well, I got some cracking in the bottom part of this big piece. Okay. Come down on the kiln shelf. Yay, David! And now we can tip it back, but I have to put some cushioning down and some cardboard. Why did it do that?
I don't know. Is that fillable and repairable? You think, does it look like it's all the way through?
I think it is. I think it is.
Disappointing to have a crack, but Katy says she can fix it.
Everything's repairable. I can fill it with an epoxy and go for a color match on the surface. Either that or going for a contrasting color as opposed to making it disappear, make it obvious that there's another component added to the piece itself. Many times these cracks, it's like the bane of ceramics. Clay shrinks and all kinds of things go wrong, especially when you work in this scale. As you go up, it becomes magnified.
Katy holds an annual summer show of her work in her large, lush garden. Visitors come to see her figures in what she calls their intended state.
I look at my work in the garden and I feel that it resonates with the garden. When I move it to galleries, it looks good, but it's missing its environment. I do have a number of people who have purchased them for small spaces, entryways, condos. So it's not necessary that you have a great big spacious garden to put them in. They're also quite appropriate in an indoor setting.
And when a large piece sells,
it's a happy moment because that means I can buy more clay. I've had so much feedback from folks letting me know that I'm a part of their life on a daily basis. And that's a very warming feeling, especially when you work for sometimes, weeks and you're by yourself and you feel like you're this lone entity. I am connected through the work. The thing that I aim for with these pieces is to express in the simplest, elemental, core way a feeling, an attitude that is represented in the simple gesture, posture, turning of the head, twisting of the shoulder. I'm fascinated by people, love people. To me, art is really about communication. I can talk to myself all day long. But to send it out there, it then is talking to another person in another space. So it's good. It's very good.
Katy also makes beautiful smaller pieces. Here's an example. She says she likes to hand build her ceramics because it's important that the artist's hand is visible in her art. If you'd like to see more of her work, she has sculpture at the Fried Gallery in Lincoln City. Or to get on her mailing list, go to her website, katymcfadden.com. Katy's next garden party is Father's Day weekend, June 19th and 20th.
In the 1990s, some local artists painted a giant blue heron mural on the Portland Memorial Mausoleum overlooking Oaks Bottom Wildlife Refuge. Well, they decided one wall wasn't enough, so they've come back 20 years later to cover the entire 50,000 square foot building in a visual celebration of local wildlife.
So I put some highlights just right on his head. You know, just like a little highlights in the shape of feathers. Let's paint them so they're less contrast, so you have that atmospheric perspective in the background, so it really pushes them in the back, you know, so it's not everything's just like pushed right in your face.
Something like this is an awesome blank canvas. I think when we counted it up, it comes out to about 50,000 square feet. The blue heron down here is, I think, 90 feet tall. Supposedly it's going to be the biggest fine art mural on the West Coast. My name's Shane Bennett. I work with Artifacts Murals, based here in Portland, Oregon. So we basically did the 3D model of the whole building and then put the biggest birds in the biggest places. And this whole top portion is going to be like the sky. And then down below we'll have the horizon line with maybe a Mount Hood. And then below that will be waterfowl in the water. And so when you're looking at this thing from across the river, the horizon will all match up. It'll be pretty neat. It's all done.
My name is Mike Hauk. I'm director of the Urban Green Spaces Institute. The mural's really intended to draw attention to Oaks Bottom Wildlife Refuge. And so the mural's really about getting people to talk about why areas like Oaks Bottom are so important. It's almost literally a reflection of Oaks Bottom. When you look at that wall, everything you see up there, you could expect to see virtually on any single day.
My name is Dan Cohen, and I am the lead painter on this job. You know, it's an old building. It hasn't been, washed or cleaned in who knows how long. So there's a lot of moss and dirt. And then the south-facing walls are much more difficult because they have these odd pins sticking out, metal pins, that basically need to be ground off, primed with a metal primer. So it's a time-consuming process. When you're working on one continuous flat surface, it's easy, but with this, we really have to take into account what it's going to look like from all these different vantage points.
We use a pattern process where we get the picture that we want to put up there and we scale it and then project it in a darkroom on 4-foot patterns that are then rolled out in electric pounce. So it has a perforation that goes through and puts little holes in the paper. And you take those out there and pounce it with a charcoal bag, and the charcoal goes through the little holes, and then you trace that all the way down. So we start at the top and work our way down in 4-foot increments until we've drawn out the whole thing completely. And once you've drawn it out, then you pretty much just mix up your paint and go for it.
It's not very easy to create a continuous piece of artwork. You need to plan accordingly. On a canvas, you're building up layer after layer after layer, whereas like with these walls, you learn to get the same effect all at once. So it's more of painting wet on wet. And there's a certain point when you're just sort of slopping paint on, and you know, that's not the most fun part, but there's this point in the development of a painting where when you're putting the final touches on and all of a sudden everything pops and you can feel it, and it's all of a sudden the bird and it's all 3D and it's all beautiful. When you hit that point, that just makes you want to keep going. I often wonder what the birds think as they're seeing their gigantic portraits being painted on the wall. I wonder if they actually think, you know, is this, oh my God, is this the god of all ospreys coming here? Or?
All day we'll be painting and all you hear is "Rack, rack, rack." And so we're out here making duck noises, and you know, they're flying by every day, and it's the most beautiful place to work in Portland. Maybe like 16 feet wide.
Let's put him on first.
I think a lot of the murals these days are this plasticized material. So they are true artists. I mean, they're muralists and fabulous artists, and if you look at the original heron even, I still today marvel that you can see individual feathers. As far as I'm concerned, this is a project of national significance, and I think that it will constantly remind folks that are riding along the Springwater corridor, passing by, even looking if they glance out from I-5, that there's something special going on here.
You know, we'll hear people walk by and they're just amazed. They can't even believe something like that has been painted. This is a wildlife refuge. There are these indigenous and in some cases endangered species out here, and just a nice reminder about the beauty of nature, and that even though we live in the midst of a city, that there is, you know, these wonderful birds and wildlife that exist here in harmony with us.
At 50,000 square feet, the Oaks Bottom mural can be seen from miles away, but one of the best spots to view it is along Portland's Springwater Trail near Oaks Amusement Park. And we were greatly saddened to learn about the death of one of two artists featured in our story. Shane Bennett was killed while snowmobiling with friends near Aspen. We offer our condolences to his friends and family, and we're glad we were able to record his wonderful work on the Oaks Bottom mural.
To many people, a violin is a violin is a violin. But if you look very closely at the violinists in the Oregon Symphony, you'll sometimes see that one is unusually small. It's a treble violin, and it's played by Chen Tan, one of only a handful of people who own and play a treble violin. As producer Jessica Martin discovered, the treble violin might be a tiny instrument, but there's nothing tiny about its sound.
Listen to Chen Tan play, and you'll hear the cutting edge of violin music.
When I heard the first few notes, I knew right away, wow, this is so unique. This is, it's so unusual, and I just loved how it had different overtones.
This is the treble violin. Though small, it's a big innovation in the world of string instruments. By day, Chen is a violinist with the Oregon Symphony. But when the concert's over, she can't get enough of her tiny discovery.
You have to understand that the violin world hasn't changed all that much in the last 200 years. So when I heard this sound, I mean, that blew me away.
She first heard about the violin at a dinner party in Los Angeles, then got an audio sample from Russia, and finally saw one on the internet.
As soon as I saw that, I was just hitting my head on the wall because this was a kind of project that I would love to get my hands on. It's definitely appealed to me right away. And so I made all these calls looking for a treble violin and No one knew what I was talking about. So that kind of intrigued me even more. But so eventually I talked to Carleen Hutchins.
93-year-old luthier Carleen Hutchins is the creator of the treble violin. She spent the last 50 years working on a whole new family of violins, of which the treble is the smallest. These instruments are built to offer greater volume and resonance, expanded frequency range, and never-before-heard harmonies. Chen couldn't wait to get one.
Although I was attracted to the sound, I didn't realize how much work it was going to be. I figured, okay, it looks like a violin. It sounds somewhat like a violin. I figured, oh, it'll be easy to pick up and learn. Well, I was so wrong. It's so much tinier. You have to modify your technique quite a bit. And to get a beautiful sound, you have to also modify your bow techniques. I brought both of my violins. The bigger of the two is what I used when I play with the Oregon Symphony. This is a modern Italian made in 1897. And the smaller one is the treble violin, and this was made in August of 2003. The treble violin is much smaller than a regular size violin. Its dimensions are like a quarter-size violin, a child's violin. And the fingerboard, which is the black ebony wood that you see here, that's where we put our fingers down. And the string length is so short that you have to really squish your fingers in to play all those little notes. I mean, I have to really, sometimes I have to actually substitute a finger for a different finger. But the biggest difference is it's the sound. I will pluck the full-size violin. It's tuned G, D, A, E. And the treble violin is also tuned G, D, A, E, but it's one octave higher. Whereas in the orchestra, I'm part of one of many. And my part tends to be, to fit in and weaving in and out of the fabric. The treble violin has given me a chance to kind of soar and play more melodic tunes.
For her first concert on the treble violin, Chen chose Paganini's Second Sonata. She performed it as a duo with guitarist Stephen Adams.
It's already an innovative instrument. So it just gave me a creative release. It just allowed me to do something and think outside of the box. And a music video is quite creative. So it seemed like a perfect match to have both of them together. I picked Vivaldi's Goldfinch Concerto, and I chose it because it featured the unique high range of the treble violin. It just had a really beautiful sound. I mean, it does sound like a bird up there. It really does.
A while ago, would you ever have seen yourself making a music video with an instrument that almost nobody else plays?
Heck no. No. But it just seemed right at the time. It just seemed like it was a perfect match. And I'm glad I did it. If I had known what the little details might have been and the cost or, technical things that was going to happen, I might have been a little bit deterred, or maybe hesitant on taking on the project. But I'm glad I did. If you feel so compelled and you're really excited about something, just do it. That's a great philosophy in life. If you're really excited about something, just do it. Don't hold yourself back, just do it.
Jen told us that the E string on that violin is made of carbon wire, and it's best to wear goggles or turn away from the instrument when you're tuning it because you have to turn that string almost to the breaking point to make the right sound. To learn more about Jen Tan and the treble violin, or to see more of that music video and learn about future performances, visit her website at trebleviolin.com.
And now here's this week's Artbeat calendar. Pendulum Aerial Arts Company is presenting a special 10th anniversary performance, a retrospective of some of their best from the past 10 years. Performances are April 17th, 18th, 23rd, and 24th. And then on Sunday the 25th, they'll have a community open house and show. It's all at the French American School, 8500 Northwest Johnson in Portland. For information and showtimes, go to pendulumdancetheater.org.
Portland Cello Project, featuring Artbeat alum Gideon Freudman, brings its unique brand of cello music to Hillsborough. They're performing as part of the Classical Roots Americana series at the Walters Cultural Center in Hillsborough. The show is April 23rd at 8 p.m. It'll be great. Call the center for ticket information.
Broadway Rose Theater Company opens a Tony-nominated musical that explores the highs and lows of love. Romance runs through May 9th on their new stage, 12850 Southwest Grant Avenue in Tigard. For more information, go to BroadwayRose.com.
And Artbeat alum Jim Riswold is featured at the Jordan Schnitzer Museum of Art right now through September 5th. It's titled Marie Antoinette's Head and Others, and the show features his satirical photographs that are so creative and fun and often dangerously funny. The Schnitzer Museum is located on the University of Oregon campus.
Okay, that's it for us tonight, and we won't be back next week because we're being preempted, but come back April 29th when we'll have a story on perhaps Oregon's best-known classical composer, Ernest Bloch.
And we'll introduce you to a woman who has to have a feather-like touch when she paints.
Thanks for watching.
Good night.
Funding for Oregon Artbeat provided by the James F. and Marion L. Miller Foundation, the Kinsman Foundation, and viewers like you. Thank you.